Welcome back to Entertainment Banter. My name is Joel,
And I'm Matt.
and we bring you a quarantine episode of goodness with an extra
With
guest.
Entertainment Banter.
Yeah,
We
with
have a
Entertainment
guest?
Banter. We have a guest.
We have another guest?
We do. We might as well. We have nothing else to do.
All right, fair enough. All right, so who's this lovely person that we're talking to
You should
today?
introduce him. I don't need to introduce him all the time.
Oh, okay.
He's a repeat.
He's a repeat. It's Nick.
Hello.
Hey, Nick. How you
Oh,
doing?
Nick! No one's heard your voice in a long time.
I know,
It's so
right?
good to be back. Well,
Yeah.
they just hear my name every episode. They don't necessarily hear my voice.
That's
Yeah,
true.
he's
That's
the
very
famous person who's we talk about all the time. In
Our
every
number one
episode.
fan, next to my mommy,
Oh.
Yeah.
Of course.
and that other guy that talks to birds.
He comments on all our freaking pods,
He does. He's a great guy.
like online.
Yeah, I know.
And then he
He's
texts
the only
us.
one.
Someone's gotta
he's
do
the
it.
one. Someone's
I
got to
guess
do
so.
it. Just keep us honest.
So, Nick, do you want to have the honor of introducing what we're talking about?
Sure. I believe we're going to be talking about the recent Bob Iger stepping down and Chepeck taking over the reins as CEO of the Walt Disney Company.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, Nick, I have a question for you.
Yes.
What is your opinion about Bob Iger?
Well, my honest opinion, as someone who is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company in any way, is that I'm a fan of Bob Iger, which I know from episodes in the past. You're very vocal about you not being a fan.
Yes.
And we can have differences in those opinions.
can.
Absolutely, but real quick, can you answer? Do you have a gun to your head, Nick?
Just from being in quarantine, and all that. But
No, he wouldn't need a gun to his head because Iger is still running the show behind the scenes. He's just in a higher
Basically.
spot and out of the spotlight.
He just let an scapegoat take his
Big time.
take his seat.
I do find the timing of all this quite hilarious, actually.
Oh, it's not an accident,
There's
Nick. Your
no
little,
way.
your little saint.
I think
knew
it's a
exactly
test
what he
for
was
Chepeck,
doing.
actually.
I think Iger knew something was
exactly.
coming, but he didn't think it was gonna be like this. He didn't think the virus. He thought something else was coming.
Nope.
And he let Chepeck, whatever his chipmunk,
Chepeck.
take his fucking
Bob number 2.
take his
Bob number
role,
2.
and that way,
Can I
like,
just tell
he
you when we had to read that letter, like I was like, I got confused for a second. I'm like, why is Bob talking about himself in first person? And I was like, oh, it's a different Bob. Got it.
No, it's just how
That threw
Bob
me for a
is.
loop.
Yeah, they're
But
called the
no-
Bobs.
Calling the
We
Bob.
got Bob Iger, Bob Chepeck, and Bob Weiss.
Yeah.
Now I
would-
remember. Wait, what? Who's Bob Weiss?
He's head of WDI.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I have to disagree with you, Joel. I think he knew exactly what was coming down the pipe, even with this
With
whole
coronavirus?
Yes, absolutely. Because if you look back, all right, first of all, he spends all the money, right? And then things start tanking because of identity politics. And then China's hit first, right? China had this for
Right.
months, right? Months. He's got his no in. He knows what's going on overseas. And so I think he knew that, like, when the pandemic was getting that bad in China and they were talking about closing the parks over there, that he's like, oh shit, it's not going to be long before it comes over here. I know what I'll do. Everybody's hating on me because of the identity politics. The movies are tanking. I spent all our money. I'm just going to get out now. And when our parks in the United States start closing, then I won't be blamed for it. So, not on my watch.
God,
But
he-
whether it was intentional or not, though, what a great test for Chepeck. To be honest, like, he comes in and it's like, well, here you go. All your parks are closed. You got no income coming from
Well,
the park side.
I think I will say this
his
about
beginning
Disney.
of his CEO ship is going to be very low.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because
He can only
now
go up.
I've been bashing Disney for the last 10 years, but I will say this. I told this to Joel too when it happened, but I did I mean, granted, every company is doing it for a little while, but I do appreciate that the company is paying their employees even when things are shutting down. So how long that lasts, I don't know, but I am grateful that they are doing that. Whether it's a PR, I don't know how to describe it, a damage control fix, but the idea of releasing Frozen 2 on Disney Plus, and not that anyone gives a shit about Star Wars anymore, but like releasing it a couple days early for digital download, you can see that at least they're trying to appease people. And I mean, I don't know if that's Chepeck, I don't know if that's Iger pushing some buttons. They're also talking about getting rid of Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm, like Chepeck's picking up the slack over there supposedly. So it does look like a ball is turning around. Like, maybe Chepeck knows he was the fall guy and he's just doing everything in his power in the first couple of months to try to really make himself look good. I don't know. We'll see
Or
what happens.
maybe he just is going to make it look good, and he's going to spin it and say, "Look, I haven't spent any money for the first 2 months."
Well,
Yeah,
we already knew that was his MO.
He doesn't like spending money, so
that's been his thing, and this is one of my gripes about Chepeck. Where, and I think a lot of people's problems with him is just that he's reluctant to spend money, and sometimes I think that he runs off of this mindset of, I'm going to keep pulling funding here and there until it becomes a problem for us, and then I'll start introducing it back.
Right.
You know? And I'm not a fan of that sort of like business tactic. I think you really need to look at the numbers instead ahead of time, and not just try to like, let's just yank money from these places. And
because it fucking trickles down. Because if he does that, it makes like our like upper management start going, well, I need to make cutbacks. You mean
company management?
Yeah. Well, because then you got people like David Miller making cuts because he's kind of, he reports to like Chepeck in a way, and it's just like, well, at least back when he was just the president of the parks, and when you pull like that, like, let me see what that does, and it makes David Miller like, oh no, I got to do cuts, and then like it affects us, and like it trickles down to our department and the quality, it trickles to us, and then we have to like do things to appease, and hopefully it works because we still have pride in the jobs we do.
Yeah, you know what I want to know is, what the hell is Iger actually doing at this moment in time? Because he's basically, he's got his hands washed. You know what I'm saying? Like,
he's probably washing them.
I fucked up this whole situation. I spent too much money.
I don't think Iger is saying those exact words, but I think that it is interesting, right? So I kind of like the idea, the core idea behind him saying, I want to stay involved in the creative aspects. I want to keep running some things before I leave, but I can't do that while doing the job of a CEO. So it's kind of interesting because you don't really think about it that way. You just think of like, well, he's CEO, he's God, he makes all the things happen.
He doesn't. He can't. He's one guy.
Exactly, but that's why he was saying, I can't run the company and do these creative endeavors at the same time. So it kind of makes you go, huh, okay, that's actually an interesting
creative
way to put
endeavors.
it.
So are we talking like the Obamas, where like, for the whole time they were in the White House, they were ass kissing Hollywood, and now they have their own production studio and for Netflix and everything else? So is Iger just looking to the future to be a solo act, and he wants to dip his hands in the water of entertainment? Because a lot of the identity politics is coming from Iger. I mean, that's where it's coming from. That's how it got infected with Kathleen Kennedy and Star Wars. That's how it's been affecting Marvel. But the problem is, the way they're not doing it appropriately, and now movies are tanking. And so he wants to still have that option to put in whatever he wants in the movies, but like, he's not getting the credit for it or the blame. You know what I mean? So like, now he's all creative, right? He's not a part of the actual process.
Yeah, what's he trying to do creatively?
So, do you know what I'm saying? It's like weird. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand, because it's Chepeck that's getting rid of Kathleen Kennedy. He's the one that's pulling all the stops.
What was the whole thing with Iger and being creativity? Like, wants to be involved in Star Wars? Like, what's his deal?
Yeah,
like,
the identity
what's he
politics,
trying to do?
Look, I'm not a fly on the wall per se. This is my speculation. This is based on, the last few years of really just researching this stuff. But basically, the way I see it happening, because you can be a fly on the wall in the office, and it doesn't matter what they say and what they do. You have to look at what's actually been done. And what I'm seeing is Disney's doing more and more identity politics in their movies, and it's becoming more and more brazen across the board in any franchise, was Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, you name it. But I think he just kind of, like, because it didn't happen that way overnight. It's like it's been a really fast progression all of a sudden. And I feel like, like we even talked about it from the Frozen show at the park, it's like it came down to a head where, like, they started making these radical decisions on casting and everything else, and it's fine. But I mean, it's like, at the end of the day, if you're looking at merchandising and you're looking at what's on stage, it's not matching up. But it's because they're trying to do all this identity politics stuff, which is fine. But I think they started to really force it at this, like, last few years, to the point where, not everybody's on board with it. And that's why, movies like, Star Wars was tanking. That's why Captain Marvel was starting to be a problem. And I'm not gonna, people are gonna blame the coronavirus on Onward's, poor box office. But the reality is, there was already issues with that movie before it even came out. There's already identity politics versus people that agree or disagree. They were already battling that situation before this hit. The coronavirus just definitely didn't help. I think what's smart is that Disney did postpone things like Mulan and other things because otherwise that would just be a complete wash. You'd lose out on everything. So that was smart.
Mulan?
Yeah, they're postponing a lot of features now. They're just going to wait.
Pretty much everything.
Before they
stuff
release?
that's in production currently.
Yeah, so wow. I
guess no one's going to be gathering to make movies.
No, but I just don't know. I mean, he's like, it's kind of ironic if you compare what Iger's doing. He really is like the Emperor. He's like the Rise of Skywalker Emperor, where he's off in a distant universe, like no one knows where he is or what he's doing, but he still has final control and say over everything. And Chepeck is definitely like this Kylo Ren fall guy. I don't know. It's weird.
Well, I think I can definitely say that I didn't expect Chepeck to, even though I know he was, I guess, in the line of succession, he was probably next. But I think because Iger went through such a scrutinous interview process for him to get the job as CEO, it was a bit surprising based off what I know from the book that he wrote. I think that it's surprising that Chepeck just kind of went boop and took the reins, I should say.
It was so quick.
Well, do you think? See, this is the way I visualize it.
Was there writing on the wall that was going to happen?
I feel like
internally, probably. I'm sure it was a discussion. Yeah. You don't get to just be CEO because Iger said you did. I mean, it has to go through the board. They have to approve it. So it was clearly being identified and being talked about way ahead of the announcement.
But the problem with that, though, is the board is pretty much they were pretty much at the mercy of Iger. No matter how hard they tried with the stocks and everything, they were still yes men to Iger. So to me, that was kind of like a weird, didn't really count kind of situation. Like basically, if Iger said that homeless guy on the street, he should be the next CEO, the board probably still would have said okay because it came out of Iger's mouth. And now Iger's in charge of that board, so there you go. I mean, it's like, that's not much of a jump. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's in charge.
Yeah, and actually, reading an article about this too, apparently the board actually identified Bob quite some time ago as a likely successor, and Iger himself did not believe that would bestow on him, basically making him like an interim role, kind of like Staggs was,
right,
as like a chief operating officer. He didn't want to do that. He said, I did not believe that would bestow on him the kind of autonomy that I wanted him to have during this transition. And I'm not going to suddenly be working 3 days a week. My new role is still a full-time job.
Right.
So, pretty
interesting.
So I still think of Chepeck as this, after you break up with your long girlfriend or boyfriend, you just go get that fling. And I think Chepeck's that fling. So the real question is, who is going to follow Chepeck? Because
I don't think Chepeck's going to make it longer than 5 years.
Yeah, Chepeck is definitely going to be the cleanup guy, and then he's not going to get any credit.
He'll be out soon, but who'll be next?
I took this transition as... it's funny because they made Chepeck like the permanent CEO.
He's just interim in a sense.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what it felt like. And so... like you said, I would agree. I don't actually see this lasting longer than 5 years, but it's a great question, Matt, because I am curious, like once you have Chepeck, I don't know. I mean, Weiss won't take it, and I don't think any of the studio heads would want to take that, so it may be an outside person.
Feige?
Could it be someone from Fox?
I was going to say, or Feige, I don't know.
Maybe. That's a big jump, though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Is it really that big of a jump for him, though? It's not really that far of a jump.
Well, he's not in charge of parks. He's never done parks or...
Well, I know, but then it would just screw up what he's doing now. I don't think he would do it either.
I don't know. I feel like if the piece of pie is big enough, people will do anything. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. We had that conversation, Matt. Hollywood versus, and all that.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think with Feige, though, I mean, so Feige is president of Marvel, right?
Right.
So I think that him jumping into the CEO role for Disney, that's a lot more. That's why I think it's a big jump, because there's a lot more properties now that he'd be directly responsible for, which, I don't think experience is necessarily a big factor in those different lines of businesses, but it is something to consider. It would be interesting. I would like to see how he does in that role, but
he's taking over Star Wars right now, so I mean, he's already taken over another segment.
I think Filoni. No, I think Filoni and Favreau would do that before he did.
Favreau would do a great job with Star Wars.
Well, I think Filoni and Favreau, at least Filoni, I think would be the excellent choice. He was pretty much George Lucas's right-hand man for a long time.
Shit.
My question actually started making me think. Like, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, Nick. Let me ask you your opinion. Yeah. Do you think you'd want somebody in charge of the company that knows more about resorts and theme parks, as opposed to feature films, or do you think feature films is the way to go? Because in all honesty, I think the revenue in the parks is minus if you have a serious virus that's just stopping everything. But I mean, like the parks have always had consistent revenue for the most part, and
they are the moneymaker for
and then
the
they
company.
don't overspend. So I mean, and they have way more hats to wear. You have entertainment, you have food services, you have stores, and
Retail.
hotels, retail, all that. And so,
Hospitality.
My opinion is that the parks and resorts have less inherent risk involved than motion picture and the studios do.
Right.
Yeah, because they already have established money making.
Yeah,
film is a little different. It's a high risk.
And Disney has a head of studio and all those people to lean on for guidance there. So I guess we do for the parks also. But I think that to answer that question, Matt, I would say I'd probably be more comfortable with somebody who has more of the park and
I think so too
experience than because I think that that's just such a big part of the business, frankly, and that's really where it's not really quite where it started, but it is right there towards the beginning,
right?
For the company.
Yeah, I think so too. That's crazy. I mean, it's funny how so many people were surprised by that move, but it's just, I mean, I immediately thought of you.
The title of the freaking news article was Bob Iger steps down immediately. It's like, oh shit, what happened? So actually, when I was I was in Milwaukee at the auto show, and I look at my phone, I go, oh my gosh, and they're like, what happened? I'm like, well, I just got a breaking news saying that Iger stepped down immediately. Right away, my friend goes, is it a #MeToo incident? Like, it just how it happened right away. Like,
it was pretty in our end.
Are they trying to get ahead of this? And like, is it going to come out? Like, we kept waiting for more breaking news. Like, Iger did this. Iger touched this little boy. Iger likes mice up his pants. Like, we were waiting for something.
I think that was an immediate reaction for a lot of people. Was like, oh, I wonder if something happened.
No,
he's sick, or something like that.
I took it as a yes moment, and then I was
coronavirus
disappointed.
Are going to prom.
No. I was disappointed after the fact, but I actually was thinking okay, after buying all this stuff, I mean, because think about it, this company has a lot of money, and he just took that money and just started buying a shit ton of expensive things, and now
they ran out of excess cash.
They ran out of excess cash, right? And then they started throwing their identity politics, and I don't care what side of the coin you stand on. The point is, as a result of that, a lot of things that they spent money on, movies and otherwise, started to tank, and you got to make up that revenue, and so they were failing in that aspect. So they were spending money. They weren't making the money they thought they'd be making.
Now, what movies are tanking? Let's just be clear.
And I thought, well, you have to understand the big picture here, because you can't just throw out the number like it made $300 million or whatever. Because
no, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking what movies are you saying tanked?
I think the Rise of Skywalker was the breaking point. So in my thought was, because Skywalker tanked, that he was out. Like, I feel like he went to a board of trustees meeting, because he did. We potted about it prior to the movie coming out and prior to Disney Plus
and that's
actually
the one where
opening.
You said he seemed nervous, and Nick disagreed with you.
Right, and and at that point in time, I'm thinking okay, he was probably told, and this is my wishful thinking, and I'm now realizing it didn't happen. But originally, I was thinking okay, he was told, if Rise of Skywalker fails, you're out. And so when he got out after Rise of Skywalker, because it was only a week or two after it opened, and they weren't getting their numbers at the theater. So I'm thinking, that's it. They said, if Skywalker fails, you're out. And after all the reshoots and out of all the craziness that they try to do to make that movie best as possible, 5 different versions, all blah 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 blah, even no matter what they did, they still didn't do it, so he's out. But now I'm looking at it that's not what happened. What happened was he saw the writing on the wall. He knew that he spent too much. He knew that things were failing. He knew the coronavirus was going to hit the States. And he said, I'm getting the fuck out before it comes down on my shoulders. Because right now, I'm the one that bought Marvel. I'm the one that bought Lucasfilm. I'm the one that added parks all over the world. I'm the one that opened Star Wars Land. I'm God. And so I'm going to get out before...
Fox.
Right, and I also bought Fox, so I'm going to get out before, and Disney Plus. He's got this last amazing resume of all these wonderful things that he's accomplished, so he's getting out before it all tanks. But the reality is, he's also the reason why everything's tanking. He spent too much money. He added identity politics. The coronavirus wasn't his fault, but I mean, that's just shit timing. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree on the fact that that he's getting out now while the going gets good, if you will.
I'm sorry, Nick, we're out of time.
No, I want to hear that.
I think for your opinion of Iger and what he's done, I think that falls into your narrative pretty well. But I don't think that. I think this is just me. I think that he legit is saying, there's more work to be done. I have a limited amount of time because I'm not going to extend myself again, and I can't do that in my CEO role. So I'm going to try to do it in the other role. However, if that means that this gives him opportunity to potentially worsen things, then that's unfortunate. But that is a sort of position he's giving himself. But I don't think he sees quote writing on the wall. I don't think that he's leaving because of that.
Well, he wanted out anyways. Period.
Exactly.
He's been wanting out though. It was obvious
exactly. And I'm thinking about it now. With Chepeck coming in, it might actually be an interesting turn because Chepeck's background is actually in brand management. So like, I'm wondering if he's gonna he's meant to continue, this whole like what you said, like this legacy essentially that Iger's leaving behind. Like Iger's like, let me wrap this up real quick. I'm gonna peace out. Chepeck, you got it from here, but I don't think he's leaving because of that. I don't think he's trying to leave while he's ahead in his world.
Yeah, it'll be. I mean, it just boils down to if Chepeck's a yes man. What's interesting is if Iger's whispering in his ears and he's doing whatever Iger says, and he's like the dummy and he's just doing it. That's nothing's going to change, but. I'm not going to say I'm hopeful, but I find it interesting. Like I said, I feel like there's a big PR push to change how they're doing things. And we mentioned this in podcasts before too, where, if you're going to make a production, whether it's a film or show, it takes time. It takes years to planning and managing, producing, making, and finally presenting it. And, this identity politics thing started a few years prior to any of these things actually coming to the theaters and whatnot. So I'm wondering now that it's weird because they're already trying to change course, alter course, or they're either trying to do it more sneaky. And I can't tell which one it is because they still have Rian Johnson, for example, at Lucasfilm. He's still technically there. I don't know how often they're going to utilize him, but there's still rumors that he still would direct a movie. And if they do that, I'm just telling you, based on a fan base perspective alone, no one's going to support that movie. I don't think anyone supported Knives Out. And that was a Rian Johnson film that had nothing to do with Disney or Star Wars. But people were just so pissed off about Star Wars. Like he's like blacklisted his own name to the fan base alone. But like he had originally bragged about doing his own trilogy, and Kathleen Kennedy had said that even before Last Jedi came out, Kathleen Kennedy had already approved his trilogy. Well, there was rumors that his trilogy still is in existence, but other people are going to direct it, or they're going to change the story a little bit, or rewrite it a little bit, but it hasn't officially gone away. So I'm curious if they're just going to remove the names people don't like: Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy, Rian Johnson. But
and see if that helps or something.
See if it helps their marketing. But the reality is, their identity politics and their stories are still going to come out. They're just not going to get the blame anymore. Iger's not going to get the blame. Rian Johnson's not going to get the blame. Kathleen Kennedy's not going to get the blame. But they're all just whispering in the background. You know what I mean?
Well, there's got to be someone to blame. That's the thing, right? Is you find that with all these cultures, of these movies and fandoms, and you're never ever going to be able to be like, we've checked all the boxes and everybody's happy with it. Right. So there always has to be a fall guy, whether it's the CEO or whatever.
Well, it goes back to too, like I think it's the branding. I mean, it's like business 101. I mean, if you have a brand, we talked about it with Coke. If you change your can to a green can, people aren't going to recognize it or support it as much. It's just people are just used to seeing Coke in a red can. If you take some of these brandings and you do all these other things and you start changing it up, you can't force people to change what they like. Does that make sense? I don't know how. If you go to McDonald's, I don't expect to see this umami burger. You know what I'm saying? I expect to see some really worm-infested kind of piece of shit cheeseburger. No offense to McDonald's, I eat it still, so whatever. But I'm just saying, it's just I don't expect a gourmet meal at McDonald's, and I feel like Disney needs to just recognize their brands for what they are and who they're supposed to cater to, as opposed to trying to change the culture. Because when you try to change that culture, that's when you start losing the money. That's when you start losing the fan base, and that's the one thing to this day. They're hell bent on changing the culture. They're just hell bent on it, and I feel like they think there's more millennials out there, which there are a lot of millennials. But like, they're catering to this, but none of them are supporting it. None of them are supporting what they're doing, and that's
what I think it's difficult because when you obtain various properties such as Marvel and Lucasfilm and whatnot, you don't go in there buying that and saying, okay, we're just going to buy it and not do anything with it and or keep it the exact same. I mean, there has to be some sort of change, and whether that is somewhat of a culture change, and they think at the time that that's better than. Right. That's on them and their decision process. But I mean, there is inevitably always going to be change for something. Like if someone bought McDonald's, you'd probably have the same menu. Well, you'd probably have the same, things would taste the same, but you can probably expect some new menu items. You know what I mean?
Right. And then there's nothing wrong with this subtle change. But if I go to McDonald's and all of a sudden they're asking me what I want on my pizza, or if they say, yes. They start cooking on my fucking table, I'm going to be like, what's going on? It's like, there's a subtle change, and then there's like a drastic change, and like they're changing genders. They're changing, when I say changing genders, I mean like Wolverine's now a female, or whatever, or like they're all comics, female.
But they're trying like they're things.
All. No, they've tried, but every character in Marvel has now been female. Like you know what I'm saying? Like every single one of them. You don't think that's like
happened? That happened before. They happened before any
of
this.
It didn't.
I mean, there was always female Thor.
Iger. No. That happened only a few years ago, and Iger was on his watch.
I will Google up right now.
Go ahead and Google it up. Look up when they started doing female Thor. I know when they did it. It was like 7 or 8 years ago.
This goes back to what I was saying earlier, though, is where you're never going to make everybody happy because. Nowadays, if you let's say if you had a female,
but were there
Thor,
a lot of women buying Thor comics saying "I wish Thor was female"? Were there a lot of women?
But a lot of men want that.
No, but it's not that they want a female. True. But the complaints are going to come that there isn't one. It's one of those things where
but but it goes back to that mentality of then if you want a great heroine, create a great heroine, a new Marvel character that we've never heard of before, never seen before. It goes back, but instead they have to ride on the coattails of the very thing they hate. That's why like the Batwoman show's tanking so hard. It's like, and that's the other thing too is like I'll give you a perfect example, and it has nothing to do with identity politics or anything like that. Is Thundercats? Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but it's an old show that I grew up watching. Thundercats. Cartoon Network just created a new show called Thundercats Roar, and granted, it's designed in the same capacity of like Dexter's Laboratory or Powerpuff Girls, so it's not meant to be taken seriously. So I understood that with a grain of salt. But what Cartoon Network did, and this is what I'm saying, is like Hollywood as a whole, it's not just Disney, they're taking it too far, is they actually got the original voice actor from the old show. They actually animated the characters to look like the old show, but the regular, this Thundercats Roar, they all look like Dexter's Lab Thundercats. It's the best way to describe it. They're like cartoony, stupid Thundercats. But they got the original voice actor of the original character, and they drew him original, saying, if you don't like this show, you're a poop head, and your opinions are poop heads. And they were talking about the fans that grew up with the original Thundercats. That show is already being talked about being canceled. And it's just because...
They tried.
Right, but my point is, like, they went above and beyond and out of their way to let people know that you suck, and I think that's the problem. It's no longer identity politics. It's like, there's no respect for anybody that made these brands popular for what they are, and that's what I'm saying. Is like Rian Johnson's thought of making Star Wars in a different galaxy without Jedi, without Sith, without lightsabers, without the Force. It's like that's not Star Wars. That's a sci-fi epic. Like that, you just call it something else. Call it fucking, I don't know, space knitting. I don't know. Like, you just don't call it Star Wars. If you're gonna take everything that made Star Wars out of it, it's not Star Wars. And I think that's where I'm saying like the McDonald's thing.
So, I googled it. We're going back to female Thor.
Mm-hmm.
In technically, she never called herself female Thor, or what do they say? What do they say she called herself? As Thor. So she first appeared in the 1962 comics Journey into Mystery as Jane Foster.
Okay,
the first time she appeared as Thor was technically 2014.
Right.
But 1978 is when she figured out she can use Thor's hammer, and she did use it, and she called herself a different name.
Right. So why can't we just have that? Why can't we just have that?
Right. She called herself Thordis.
You said 2014?
2014
Yes.
was when she
Yes.
officially called herself Thor, but
I know this, Joel, because
she
I
did
was still
have
buying
Thor's
comics back
powers
then.
and everything, and she was able to use the hammer in 1978 comics. So it's not too far fetched what they're doing.
Using a hammer in one comic in
No,
78.
she used it for a little bit, and she saved people's lives.
No, this is a weak excuse, because how do you explain Marvel, like with the X-23, which came out around the same time as
Did X-23 come around that time?
Around that time.
By the
I'm
way,
just telling you,
we're
all
over.
of it, and now it's at the point where like everybody is that way. So, and now they brought it back to boys, but now they're gay, so it doesn't matter.
Well, to wrap all that back into the subject of the episode, so how do you think that Chepeck is going to handle all that going forward?
2004 was X-23, you piece of shit.
Okay, but that's 1 year before Iger, right? Because the 25th anniversary was 2005, right?
I don't know anymore.
That's when it all started.
Nick, forget this. Go move on. Nick, what's going on?
All right, so I'll answer.
My question was, with all the stuff you just said, I mean, on the same line of that same topic, like, with Chepeck taking over, how do you think that he's going to handle all of that stuff going forward now?
Well, it's tough to say because, like I said, it boils down to actions, and I can't. I mean, it's only rumors at this point, but there's rumors. I'll just use Lucasfilm as an example. I mean, maybe he just has a personal attachment to Star Wars. A lot of people do, so maybe that's why he's putting so much focus on Star Wars. I don't know, but I feel like the fact that he's changing things up so much dramatically at Lucasfilm right now suggests either he wants to change the culture of Lucasfilm and maybe get rid of that identity politics, or it could just be, like I said, that Iger's whispering in his ear that, we got to just get rid of Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson's names. They can still work behind the scenes. We just won't let anybody know that they're involved. And
ooh, that's shady.
But I'm just saying, because I feel like he's still an Iger yes man, but what's happening at Lucasfilm is contradictory to that. So I don't know. I mean, we won't know until we start seeing what Lucasfilm pumps out. I mean, I feel Marvel is set in its ways. They're not going to touch Marvel.
No.
They're going to wait, because Marvel hasn't, even though there's identity politics in Marvel, it's been there, but it hasn't been as rampant as other places.
It's manageable.
So it's been manageable. So I'm curious to see what the next 10 years of Marvel is going to look like. If they start shoving white men are bad and all this stuff, then I'll say, okay, yeah, nothing's changing. They're just going to go full steam ahead with this. And I feel like that's what Iger wants anyway. So, I mean, Disney was promoting this. See, this is the thing that gets me. It's like, I talked about this, I think, in another podcast. They were talking about Onward, right? And this does a disservice to the gay lesbian community too. So they're saying, oh, we're gonna have the first openly gay character in Onward. Well, it's funny how that wasn't in the trailers. That wasn't like, I mean, if you're proud about it and you're supposed to be forthcoming and you're ahead of the curve and you're gonna be woke, it's funny how like you're still ashamed if you're going to brag about it, but you don't even show it in the trailers. Why do you not show it in the trailers? Because there's a lot of conservatives that go to the movie theater and watch the trailer and say, oh, I'm not going to see that now, right? If you're so open about it, you're so willing to be diverse, and you're ready to show the world that you're a company that supports all, how come it's not in the trailer? You know what I mean? Like, how come you're not showing the world right up front what you're doing? No, you're sneaking it in. I'm going to buy, $30 worth of tickets, and I take my 2 kids there, and when they show that scene, all of a sudden I have to explain to them why that happened. It's just shady. That's what I'm saying. Like, for as righteous as they are, it doesn't seem like they're doing a very good job being righteous. This is my opinion. That's it.
A lot of dead space right there.
I'm just saying.
We're still here.
Yeah. Right? I mean,
you're not wrong.
Or the character should be flat out, the lead character should be gay. Straight out gay. You know what I mean? Right out front. I mean, I've talked about before. One of my favorite shows is Black Sails, because the whole story is about a gay relationship. And you don't really discover that until like 3 or 4 episodes in. But they never deviate from that relationship. In fact, it's the driving force to almost every character. And it's one of my favorite shows of all time, because they didn't do a disservice to the story or the characters. It was 100% dedicated. And I feel like other places, like Disney, wants to claim, that's what I'm saying, like oh, just throw a little gay in it, throw a little conservative in it, throw a little cuteness in it, throw a little bit of rated R in it, and like we're gonna pander to everybody, and it's gonna be an amazing movie. And the recipe's not working.
Yeah, but you know, Disney's not the only one doing that though. That's the thing. It's just like that's like where it is. Like
name a successful version of that where they literally tried to panhandle everything. And
I'm not saying it's been successful, but I'm just saying they're definitely not the only ones to do it.
No, it's just a trend right now.
So my thought is this: like, I'm not
it shouldn't be a trend, but it's a trend right now.
Not every Marvel superhero needs to be female. That's all I'm saying.
They're just trying to figure out the medium ground. Like they're going to extreme, of course, and then eventually it's going to settle, and then it's going to be.
So you got to cut. No ladders over 3 feet. That's what's happening.
Right. They're just trying to figure. No ladders at all, foo.
Oh, sorry, I forgot.
They're just trying to they're just trying to like whittle out what works and what doesn't work. So they're just trying to.
Right, but now their wallets are taking a hit. You know what I mean?
Course.
Like, so and here's my thought.
Like safety net, and now that safety net's gone because someone, Iger, spent all the money.
Well, here's my thing, Nick. Let me ask you, like, how many movies does Disney pump out a year? Like, you know, between their animated,
so many.
Their live action, you know, whatever, Pixar. 2. Oh, more than that, right?
That's why I said at least.
You mean across all their properties?
Yeah, across all their properties. How many movies do they pump out? You think a year?
Ballpark.
On average.
I don't know, maybe 10-ish?
Sure. Okay, so you got 10 movies. So you know what you do? You make one movie that's rated R, almost rated X, and has real live intercourse, sex scenes. You make one movie that's all about
NC-17
a gay.
Times bad use.
That's just listen to my point. Then you make an animated feature that's all about a land of gay people. You know, they're happy, they're getting along, and then you make a movie about something else. You got 10 movies, right? But instead, what they're doing is they're just trying to throw everything in all 10 movies, and it's just not working. It's just not working. And you know, if you really want to know the demographic of who's buying what movies, that would be the easiest way to do it. Because if you made a movie about baseball, you know everybody that loves baseball is going to go see it, and you can see how many people actually like baseball. Attendance in baseball has been going down dramatically. So, you know, maybe we shouldn't be making baseball movies or if we do, maybe it shouldn't cost as much. Maybe we shouldn't put all the budget in making 3D baseball effects of home runs and shit. Like, we should just keep it minimized, you know, shoot on location, so to speak. You know, like, that's the real way to figure this shit out. It's not that fucking hard. You know, instead of trying to change baseball players to like ballet, you know what I mean? That's just not going to happen.
Just to keep the accuracy up, Disney put out 12 movies in 2019.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That was pretty good. You were closest by not going over.
I was close.
I said 2.
You said that. Well, that was the other thing too, is we were talking about how Disney is competing with itself. You know, it's just like
they have all the blockbusters.
When they have 5 movies in the theater playing, you know what I mean?
All the blockbusters, like they own all the companies that produce the blockbusters. I mean, you got Paramount who can still do it, and Sony, but the rumor has it Apple's going to pick one of them up.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at AT&T. They already bought Warner Brothers, and they're already talking about HBO becoming. So HBO is going to be the new Disney Plus. So what's going to happen there is HBO is going to pick up all the Warner Brothers properties and, you know, Cartoon Network, all the alikes, and it's all going to be under that umbrella.
That'd be kind of cool.
It's happening now. It's definitely the war has begun, so to speak.
So we are definitely 10 minutes over.
That's all right. All right. So, well, Nick is our guest speaker, and I always appreciate his thoughts and opinions. He's a good sport because, you know, we're Iger haters. I mean, maybe someday he'll invite me over and he can explain in person what he actually thinks and what he's actually doing. But
he always has
therapeutic.
Nick's dick in his mouth, so I don't know.
It's therapeutic to, you know, curse out your name in the car when I'm driving to work or something. So I appreciate the stress. You know.
Yeah. I just don't want you getting so upset like you lose control of the plane. You know, that's the only thing I worry about.
That's why I always say, Nick, eyes forward, eyes forward.
That's actually why I specifically don't listen to your podcast when I'm flying.
You get that gun out, little Nerf gun out, and turn it around, and you're like a little girl.
Day 3 of the coronavirus. You shoot yourself in the head.
Quarantine of the coronavirus.
Quarantine. Sorry, I forgot. I can't. You realize you can't say that word, right?
As we're saying, it's day 3 of the quarantine. When that listener, I don't know what's his name.
The other guy.
The other guy. Let's just call him the other guy. He's probably gonna text one of us and say, 3 days ago for the quarantine. It's been 2 months and coronavirus has been
That's
cured when this airs.
That's true, because we have like 5 other podcasts that are going to air before this one. So,
and he'll definitely say like it was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only 5 now. Wow, you guys are tightening up.
We're catching up. Yeah, there was actually a debate of us just letting it run out and then every Saturday record and post that same day.
Yeah,
but who knows if we can actually pull that off? I didn't even post this last weekend. Shit, I need to go.
I know. That. I was wondering if you were going to.
Yeah, post. I forgot. I've been using my work as like schedule of when I do things, and
right.
Haven't been at work. So
no discipline.
That was my discipline.
Is this the part of the show where we do final thoughts? Or
yes,
let's do final thoughts. Let's do
Nick,
it. Look at that.
Means,
Nick listens. All right, final thoughts.
Yeah. Nick, what is your final thought?
So,
and I'm done.
Talking about Chepeck taking over for Iger. I mean, Chepeck, I'm not a fan of what he's done so far, but he's been with us since like '93, and
longevity doesn't mean shit though.
You know what? But he knows the company at that point. It doesn't mean that he's been a huge involvement in different aspects and stuff, but I like his background. And actually, during the episode, fun fact, maybe Chepeck is our answer because he has a degree in microbiology. So maybe he can figure out this coronavirus thing.
Oh, answer for that. Oh, yeah, maybe, because I would love to go back to work.
Nick, you just jogged my memory, too. Like, I just realized something. He's been Iger. I mean, it's always been the case, but he's definitely Iger's butt buddy because think about all the last 10 years, right?
They bumping uglies.
All the cuts that happened in the park, the layoffs and everything else. It all happened under his watch too, because he was making that. He was probably his decisions, penny pinching, so that Iger could buy all those properties.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Possible.
But listen, that's the perfect pair, though. I mean, I think that whether those decisions were right or not is one argument, but the fact that you can have someone say, "Hey, you want to do all these things? I might have a way for you to be able to do that." I think.
Could you imagine?
That's like they go out to fucking lunch. Fuck them all up.
Yeah, they go to lunch and they're talking about like, "Hey man, it'd be really cool if we can buy this property." And then Chepeck just looks up from his drink and goes,
"He's like, I know how to do it.
I got a way.
Cuddle entertainment.
I know a way.
Raise the prices in the park."
To your comment though, saying with like him being with the company since '93, I mean, I think that's almost against him a little bit because even though he knows that the company works, is it a good thing, bad thing? Like his longevity.
It's a fair point.
It's
well,
just
here's the other thing too is, and we know this.
He could be jaded. Like look at all the people who've been there since '89. All the people we work with, they're so jaded.
Or he thinks his recipe works and it doesn't, because how many times, like he cut corners, he did penny pinch, he was
around during the Eisner,
right? But
branch.
We've had this arguments before, especially if you look at the theme park aspect. Any area in the parks where you cut entertainment, profits went down in the food and the retail areas every single time. So even his penny pitching ideas still hurt the company. So
yeah,
well they trip over pennies to save dollars. Wait,
to
trip over dollars to save pennies. There we go.
To add in my and wrap up my final thought on it is, I think that if Chepeck leads the company the way that he's been leading parks and resorts, I think that it's not going to be the end of the world. But I would hope that with his new role, maybe he can lean on people a little bit more and then make a little bit better decisions as far as that goes, with cuts and building upon our brands and whatnot. And maybe it's a good change. Maybe in the new role he'll be able to do that a little bit more. I am sad to see Iger go. I think that I like what he's done for the company over the years, but I'm glad that he's still keeping a creative role for now. And he'll be gone when he leaves, and then we'll see how Chepeck does. I think it's just a matter of time and see what happens after that.
All right, Joe, what's your final thought?
Well, Bob came in.
Which Bob?
Another Bob came in.
Which Bob?
Jesus. And then a Bob retired, and now Bob's in charge. No, my final thought is just that. So Iger's leaving, and he's still going to be in the shadows, almost like pulling the strings,
like the Emperor.
Almost like he's got Chepeck on a marionette. Not necessarily. I don't really truly believe. Like he's only one man, and we play this game like Iger has his hands in everything, and he does. And like he showed up to our, certain shows that we do.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, whatever. And he does appear. I mean, he hasn't appeared recently on the show I'm doing now, but who knows what's going to happen. We're the redheaded stepchildren of this company. But
You're talking about Iger or Chepeck?
either of
Iger.
them.
Well,
But
yeah,
it's just
those
like
two.
so Iger comes in. He did his thing, and now he's going to be in the shadows pulling strings. But who knows if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because he may not be pulling strings as much as you think anymore. Just because he is only one man. There's only 24 hours in the day. I mean, I know Disney thinks there's 28, but there's only 24, and he's going to probably do what he wants to do. Maybe he is going to do creative. I'm very unsure what he's going to do creatively wise. That's really unknown to me, because I didn't really see it as he was our CEO in the first place. You'd think he'd have some kind of like, oh, I'm being in charge of the company and then I'm going to do some creativity here. No, it seemed like he was just pulling shit the whole time. So I don't know what he's doing. But then he had Chepeck that I'm not really a big fan of, because my whole time working under him, I was not a fan because he was cutting entertainment like we talked about. So I'd be very curious what he does with... He went from doing the parks to now he has the whole company. So it's going to be really interesting.
It's just cutting on a grander scale, that's all.
But the thing is, maybe he won't be. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, everyone said that Trump had a lot of checks and balances and he was able to be docked at shit. But, I mean, that didn't do anything. So I don't know what's going to happen with Chepeck and all that.
Did they announce a successor for Chepeck?
I was just going to ask that. Do we know who's...
That's a great question, Nick.
I don't
That's a
think
real
so.
quiet, underhanded thing.
Yeah.
But you know what's really interesting about this
Bob
company?
from accounting.
So it has to be a Bob. So
It has to be a Bob.
We had Bob Iger, we had Bob Chepeck, Bob Weiss. Guess
Right.
what the next set of names are? There's 3 Allens.
Oh, the Allens are
Alan
coming.
Horn, Alan Horn,
Allens.
co-chairman and chief creative officer for Walt Disney Studios.
All right.
Yep.
Or excuse me, for Walt Disney Company, and then so he's the chief creative officer. And then there's Alan Bergman, who's the co-chairman of Walt Disney Studios.
Great.
And then there's Alan Braverman, who's our senior executive vice president and general counsel.
And then
That's
there's
funny.
Alan, who's a choreographer maintenance for
You're so
Frozen.
dumb.
I mean, he's in there, man. There's 4 Allens, guys.
It's a good time to be named Alan, for
There's
sure.
an Alan.
This clearly means that whoever's replacing Chepeck, which I don't think we have.
That's a great question,
They have
Nick.
announced if they have a replacement for him. But it's
Yeah,
gotta be Bob.
I think
Well,
it was
maybe
very...
that's part of his. Maybe that's part of Chepeck's cuts. No one fills my old position.
Maybe,
first
yeah,
thing to
maybe
go.
he dissolved the position.
My final thought is watch Star Wars, because if Chepeck does a good job with Star Wars, then
So,
maybe
Matt,
he'll turn it around.
You're using Star Wars as your like pendulum to see if it swings in the right direction. If Star Wars does good.
And it's not because of Star Wars itself. It's more about Lucasfilm as a whole and the brand. Because, like I said, my concern is it's really easy to get rid of the names, but if the ideas remain, then you know that they just got rid of the names to shut people up like us. Like for me, where it's like, oh, there's no more Ryan Johnson, he's gone. There's no more Kathleen Kennedy, he's gone. See, everything's good. Go back to liking your toys and watching Star Wars. Everything's fine. But if their ideas are still on the table, they're still making Ryan Johnson's films with no Jedi and no Sith and no lightsabers. I mean, that's still shit. So, I mean, it's more about how they advertise it and then what actually comes out. That's, it's one thing to talk something. It's another thing to see what they actually do. So, we'll see.
Interesting.
All right.
So that's it. So, thanks for listening to Entertainment Banter. My name is Matt.
That ended on such a sad note, it felt like, but...
Well, bring something up. I don't care, but I'm going to do my call sign ending no matter what. So just fucking say what you want to say. The parks are closed. Everyone's getting paid vacation. Isn't that a wonderful thing? I mean, how much better can we make this, Joel? I can't. I'm bombing here. There's nothing I can say.
You're drowning here. No, fine.
drowning.
Fine.
Well, I want to thank you guys for allowing me to come on the show again.
Yes.
It's been a while.
Nick,
a couple years actually.
Oh my god, have we been doing this that long?
Mm-hmm. It's been a while, yeah. Because
Oh my
I was up in Bakersfield in a dorm room and everything when we
Oh my
recorded
gosh,
the last
that's
one.
just so long.
How old was your son, Matt, when we started this?
Well,
Was
we
he
were talking
even
about The
born
Last Jedi.
Was he even born?
I don't remember.
I think when you started it? Oh, I don't know about that.
No, he
Well,
was born. No, he
started it when
totally
we were
was born. It
watching
was my
Dragon
daughter.
Ball-
It was my
we-
daughter.
We
It was my
started
daughter.
this shit when we were watching
No,
all of Dragon Ball Z during the show.
Yeah, no, Ben was in California, so obviously he was born. So it was my daughter that we were talking about around The Last Jedi time frame.
Right. So I mean, we've been I guess almost 3-4 years now, huh?
Yeah. So so thanks for having me on the show again. Appreciate it. I didn't have to yell at Matt or anything. So that's good.
Yeah, but actually, your temper was very mellow.
Do you still have that Iger poster?
It is 5 in the morning
baby?
where certain people are.
Yeah,
or the
it's
child.
In the morning here. I still have the Iger and Baby Yoda. What we did is we actually printed those out and put it at a bunch of our desks. I'm probably gonna blow it up onto a canvas and hang it over my fireplace.
What the fuck?
Never change, Nick. I love you. That's awesome. All right, can I sign off?
And my name is Joel, and this was Entertainment Banter with guest star. Are we using his name? Nick?
Oh my
Nick
gosh.
Herring.
Yes, we use Nick. Just Nick.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
The pilot.
And I'm done.
No, get out of here. That's my call sign.
No, I said, just to end it already, will you?
And I'm done.